Hey, Cardinal family. I have an update on assessment for you that I'd like to share specifically regarding NSCAS growth. But before we get to that, I wanted to remind you about the post I had last week. Last week, I asked you for input regarding curriculum mapping using a Google form. I also asked you to share examples that you might have of curriculum mapping work that you have done in a Google folder. I'm going to relink both of those, the Google form and the Google folder. I'd still love it if you could contribute some information to those to help us with our curriculum mapping efforts as we roll through this school year. Now let's talk about NSCAS growth, but before we talk about NSCAS growth, I want to talk about MAP first. Now, most of you are familiar with MAP, Measures of Academic Progress, which is an assessment that we use. We've used it in Creek Public Schools in some capacity, I think, since 2012, with varying degrees of administration when it comes to which content areas and which grades we are testing. MAP is a super powerful tool. It's a really great tool that we can use to tell our story of achievement and tell our story of growth for our students, and more importantly, on top of that, help us make individualized instructional decisions about our students that are going to benefit them the most. So we're going to keep doing that. But here's what's changed with NSCAS. Now, if you're not as familiar with NSCAS growth, I think in 2020, the Nebraska Department of Education undertook an initiative where we were going to develop a test that was very similar to the MAP test, but specific to Nebraska and our standards. In fact, they even contracted with NWEA, the company that produces the Measures of Academic Progress assessment. The plan was for NSCAS growth to be fully operational for the school year that we're in right now. That turned out to be a little problematic. They didn't hit the targets that they were hoping when it came to development for that test. There were numerous educators throughout the summer that voiced concerns with things like that the cut scores weren't as accurate as what we thought they should be. The RIT scores were not as accurate as we thought they should be, that the test wasn't as adaptable as what we were hoping it was going to be. And to the credit of our Department of Education, they say, okay, we understand, and they backed off on the expectation. The expectation for this year was going to be that we were required to give NSCAS growth in the fall. It was optional for the winter, and we would be required to have the end of the year NSCAS assessment. NDE has changed that, and the only required time we need to take NSCAS for the school year is in the spring, in that last assessment. So our plan right now, because there's still the option to use NSCAS in the fall and in the winter. Our concern is we're still not sure about the validity of that test. We still think that there's some bugs to work out, and we really don't want to double up our standardized assessment time for our students, because that cuts into our instructional time and inspires test fatigue and some things that we don't want. So our plan right now is we are going to use MAP for our students to take MAP in the fall. And we are going to use MAP for the students that need it in the winter. And in the spring, we will either do just NSCAS growth or NSCAS growth and MAP. It is our hope that through continued development of the NSCAS growth test, that by the time we roll into spring, they have the bugs worked out, and we are comparing very similar data sets between our MAP data and our NSCAS growth data. If we can get to that level of confidence that, when we take the NSCAS growth test, that jives with the MAP data that we have, and we can monitor our students' growth and their achievement and find those deficiencies in a way that corresponds with our data that we have in MAP. If we have a strong, high level of confidence in that, then yeah, we'll roll just NSCAS in the spring. If we still feel as though NSCAS is not quite where it needs to be, we're probably going to look at applying the required NSCAS and also probably applying the MAP test so that we can still have that bookend set of data fall to spring where we can really demonstrate how much of our students have grown with the MAP assessment. A lot of this stuff has been fluid. A lot of this stuff has been changing depending on the policy coming from the Department of Education, as well as input that we provide the Department of Education. If stuff changes, I will let you know. But right now, that's the story I have. If you have questions about it, don't be afraid to give me a shout, shoot me an email, give me a call, and we will talk through it. I'm going to remind you one more time, boy, I would love to have some more information from you regarding your perception of curriculum mapping, your experience with curriculum mapping, and some examples you may have. So hit up those links as well, and I'm going to keep asking until I get a bunch of that. I think that's all I have. So good to have this first sort of week under our belt and ready to rock another full one next week. Hang in there, Connor family. We got it.